Hello people. I wanted to make this video not so much as a response to Rollo, but rather as a general criticism of the attitudes within Manosphere as a whole. I mean, there are very few people within this scene that I genuinely respect for their work and character, and Rollo is one of them. Since the interview, we have kept in touch, and he shares his criticism for my work and adds his insights to my views. He recently wrote an article based on the video that I just released. The link for the article and the previous video will be found in the description, and I genuinely like that article. I do not think we're in disagreement as much as it would seem from first reading it, because I understand where he's coming from when he's expressing his views. I will split this video in two parts. The first part would be addressing this hateful, divisive opinion of what I call fanboys of different sects of the Manosphere, and also would address some of the points that I made in the previous video so as to answer some of the questions and the criticism. We will start with the divisions first, as I believe that is the most important thing to cover right now. Rollo and I sit on two different subsections of the Manosphere. We represent, I guess, different points of view. However, I find myself agreeing with his message more so than I agree with the message of many of the self-proclaimed MGTOW. The reason for that is that though his articles may seem biased, I can see his biases and he does not hide them when they do exist. I hold no judgment for Rollo because I can see the volume of his work, and I can see the effect it has played in my personal life and in the life of many other men. That is to say, the articles that I read on his website are very well written, factual, and though personal opinion pieces at times, he describes a reality under a red pill lens. Saying that, we will not agree on everything. And generally, I'm a bit more liberal in my views in terms of I don't care what people do. I do not think there is a right way or a wrong way. But generally, I want the same thing he wants. I want a red pill reality for all men. I want men to know these things that we talk about, and I want them to be able to make the decisions they want for their own lives, knowing full well what they're putting themselves into. I don't want the reality of the red pill to crash them and have them unable to move on. In essence, what I do not want is for the red pill to be the end of their social lives and any kind of enjoyment that they might be getting from it. Generally, Rollo might focus more on the female aspect of things, that is to say, the interaction between man and woman. He sees as I do that occasionally, when that fire goes out, the fire for new experiences, new adventures, for a life to be lived at its fullest, does get reduced with it. Though I have no stats for what I'm about to say, but in my experience I have found men who live fulfilling lives with and without women in them. I have found that the men that generally complain about their lives and do not feel like they want to move on or do something more, they seem to be lacking women in them. Now, this is not a rule, and I do not know what it is that distinguishes the men that do go on to live fulfilling lives without women versus the men who reach a point of social isolation, let's say, and display hate towards the opposite sex due to pushing themselves away from women. Rollo rightly said in the comment section of that article that there is a lot of fear being displayed in MGTOW, and I have tried to address this in multiple videos before. I find that the fear, although rational to an extent, restructuring your whole life based on that fear is entirely irrational. The guys that I have met that are happy while they're no longer engaging with women have replaced that drive with something else equally or more important in their lives. They do not fear women, they genuinely have more important shit to do. Therefore, they actively avoid women as they're a waste of their time. And I absolutely get that. Hell, I did that before I even knew the concepts of MGTOW and while I was dating. Whereas the guys that actively avoid women due to fears of false rape accusations, divorce settlements, false abuse claims, whatever it might be, live their lives in quiet desperation. Because they have found nothing better to do. The drive is still there, yet they rationalize the fear and give it a name. And that is not to say that the fear is not legitimate. That is not to say that those things do not happen. That is not to say that there have not been cases and will still be cases of all those things. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they use that as an excuse. They paint every single woman under the same brush as evil. And we're afraid of evil. And again, here, I will say this again. I'm not saying that not all women are like that. All women are, of course, hypergamous and gynocentric. Of course they are. But not all women are evil. In fact, the nature of woman is not evil. Her morals are questionable, but so are mine most of the time. Rollo recognizes alongside me that, as far as it pains me to say, we, in our effort to explain female nature, in our effort to explain ourselves, have looked into the worst aspects of that nature. We have broken down the data and seen the patterns. We have reached the conclusion that the game is rigged, and some MGTOW have decided to not play the game at all. And I mean not date, not engage, not even speak to women. When these people are confronted on their opinions, they justify them with false rape claims, the fact that women are hypergamous, the fact that women cannot truly love, divorce statistics, marriage contracts, the fatherless homes, etc. But the majority of these things, in terms of risk, at least are entirely controllable by your engagement with the opposite sex. However, when it does get extreme, I have only met people within the MGTOW sphere that believe that they need to completely stop any interaction with women. They do not want to speak to women, even at work. They're scared of every small interaction they're forced to have with one of them. Sure, women can be backstabbing bitches, manipulative assholes, but fuck if I'm gonna live a life dictated by that. I disagree living a life dictated by an if. I personally advocate in taking your precautions and living as you please, but living fully and being content with the decisions that you make. In my eyes, there is no wrong way other than letting fear paralyze you. Because I know what that can do to a man. And to anyone who has lived through the worst parts of female nature, I want to say that I'm sorry about that. I really am. And as patronizing as that may sound, I do not believe that you should live a life as a victim of someone else's actions. I want you to go past those actions and see past the life that one person has affected. Deal, get up, get angry, fight back. And when that's done, when you're done fighting, accept that experience for what it was. A shitty ass bad fucking that not only hurt, but fucking left warts and scars and tears right there. And move on. Seriously, do not be a victim anymore. Fuck them. The key thing that people seem to forget is that the opposite to love, as in the love that you had for women, is not hate, fear, or anger. It is indifference. Now, I'm going to move on to the second part of this video, and particularly the criticism of the previous video. One of the main criticisms was that I advocated for being yourself. And in past videos, such as in the series of Nico's Guide to Dating, I said not to share your emotions. And in videos such as in the poem Grandpa, What Is It to Be a Man? I have explained the divide between man and beast and man in the mask, and that is the reality for men. This was something that Rollo criticized in the article that he wrote, that there are not two men living inside of us. And the second man, as we see it, the man that I portray as wearing different masks and acting different roles, is basically the professional man, the father, the husband, the boyfriend, whatever that role might be. I do in essence see that part of my life as something separated in how I am when I feel comfortable and alone, for example, kind of settled down, reminiscing of my life and contemplating the present and future. And Rollo actually rightly pointed out that this is, the result of the burden of performance for men, that there is no distinction between the two selves, and that it is the burden of performance that runs too hot for some of us, or wears us down to want and seek this absence of that specific role. I agree with Rollo in as much to say that the burden of performance is always present for men. I agree with him in so much as to say that all of us need to act different roles in our lives, and each one of those roles requires different compartments of our brain and different emotions to be the most dominant ones. However, the video was not made to reconcile the two parts. It was made to understand the two parts. Rollo has said something in the article that he enjoys going fishing, contemplating about the world, and I do enjoy coming to terms with my emotions and owning them. Not just thinking about what I'm feeling, whether that is anger or sadness, but expressing them. Whomever it is that I'm talking to, and whether that makes me look like a bitch, I simply do not care anymore. What I need to state here is that my process does not allow for my emotions to overflow or explode in people's faces. And for that, I have had women that commented that I appear to always be in control, when I appear to be expressing a lot more emotions that I expressed in the past. And I express emotions that I never expressed before. I believe what I took from this is that it is not so much what you say, but how you express it and how you carry yourself. You see, I have made 2 different videos addressing this. The first one was called The Man and the Beast, and the other one is the video I'm now replying on, The Man and the Being Made of Stone. After you finish watching this video, go and watch the other 2 videos to appreciate what I'm talking about. Links, of course, are in the description box. In these 2 videos, I was not trying to show so much the difference between the mask, the role, and the burden of performance and that natural resting state of man, but rather I wanted to show the connection between the 2. I wanted to show that many, even in the manosphere, which should be used as a space for man to understand man, still divide the 2. What I was trying to show is that one is not better than the other. The 2 coexist and overlap irrespective of what you're doing. Anything that you may face at work, anything difficult for instance, would give you an emotional response, but you will dial down the expression of the emotion when you're acting a certain role. However, that emotion, every emotion, needs to be experienced and expressed. I have found that for myself, what works best is to be able to express myself and leave my emotions. My responses seem to be a lot more dialed down as a result of that. I'm a lot more comfortable in my own skin as a result of that. This means that though I seem to be expressing myself a lot more, at least personally, most of that is seen as control. I don't understand how this is so, but to me, it seems to be stemming from the fact that I no longer deny these emotions for myself. Some of my videos are going to target the emotional world, and that world cannot be broken down with equations and graphs in order to explain scientifically what I mean. I can express it in emotional language. I can use imagery perhaps to explain what I mean, but in essence, what I was trying to say in those videos is that men are burdened with many roles and many parts that they need to play in their everyday lives. That alongside the fact that men have this idealistic perception of men as either superheroes, unemotional and completely stoic, we seem to be missing most or much of what life and what nature has designed for us. Our emotional world was placed there for a reason, and it is with understanding and accepting that world that we can rule over it. And I say rule here, and it implies a sense of control over it, but that is not exactly what is happening. Both our conscious and logical minds, along with our emotional mind, are constantly working together. They're not in battle with each other. You can of course choose one over the other, but as with everything, most of the times the best results occur when they're working in parallel. A man who does not accept himself for who he is and is in constant battle with himself, a constant battle with this different side to him, is a man who is not comfortable with who he is. This is something that I understand when I talk to older men and I observe young boys and how they're acting. These males who do not give a fuck what the world thinks about them, they are the true representation of our nature. My grandfather used to tell me that he got stubborn in his old age. There was no time for compromise, he said. He liked things the way he liked them, as he liked them, and he let go and let them have whatever he didn't give a fuck about. As I have been observing myself and actually asking questions with sexual partners, etc., I have noticed that I'm seen as intimidating almost. The rationale for that is that I do what I want. Though I listen and I entertain different points of view, I do what I want. And if I'm with a woman, that means we do what I want. This is the difference, I guess. For me, when the whole process started, when I was going through all the subjects and making videos about them, everything that I talked about over the past year here, everything seemed to be an active process of self-reflection. Many aspects of it still are, to be fair, but many have turned into a natural state of being. I believe at this point in my life, I understand myself a bit better than before. I'm probably at the point where I understand myself the best I ever did. I'm not lost and I do know what I want from my life. I accept my emotional world, my fucked upness, let's say, inside, and I deal with things. I do not hold on to emotions and I express them, though I do on occasion feel slightly emasculated when I express emotions commonly linked to the feminine sphere. I never feel weaker for doing so. In actual fact, I have found emotional expression to be a cathartic way of going about things. And that is to say that I do not break down. I'm not constantly fighting back the waterworks. I'm way past that shit. Everything that was long held inside is long gone. There are no roles that I need to act other than the ones that I want to act. And that is the key. Freedom, emotional stability, and exploring and understanding yourself and your own ego. I do not know which way works best and how to go about it. I believe every person is different when it comes to that. But I do believe that each person can start this whole process alone. And when he's stuck, he can always find inspiration in the writings in the manosphere, videos from people that deal with specific issues like this, such as Spetsnaz videos, for example, and continue looking inside. There are no real rigid answers to be found. There are aha moments, though, that come only from exploring your own self. And following those moments, you keep on looking and performing introspection. What I do know for sure, guys, is that a person can never do this journey absolutely 100% alone. That is why I'm so adamant that we should at least entertain the opinions of others. Let them roll in your heads without triggering to them. If you are to disagree with someone, at least take the time to listen to what they have to say first. Each one of us will go about the journey in a different way and reach, of course, different destinations and conclusions. But in order to not stop and get stuck on our own biases, we need to allow ourselves to get embedded and borrow opinions from others. That is why I'm glad Rollo addressed this video on his blog, because the goal is to understand the nature of ourselves and to lead more men to understand and appreciate their own masculinity. And for me, that means for men to understand their emotional world too. Thank you very much for listening.